Go live. Oh, we're live. Oh, I hate the fact that I just said that. I hate being the person who said that we're live. But welcome everybody today to today's Mike Ames show, Kirsty Ames Mike Ames show. And today I'm joined by the fantastic Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hi there. Good to be here on the Kirsty Ames.
And of course, Mike from the 1990s. Peter. Hi, Pete. How you doing?
I'm good. I was really hoping that I was going to be the fantastic guest to be joining, but no, I was quickly undermined by.
Well, that's because you said yesterday that no self-respecting human would have ears made out of hair on a LinkedIn Live.
Also, your client said today in one of his posts how fabulous your brother was on the show.
It's a great day for Pete, isn't it, today? I think that's what it is. What it is.
Coming up, Pete.
We're all excited. And Big Mike, I've got to bring up your name because I know if I don't, you'll throw your toys out the pram. What's it one more get up till, Mike?
Oh, let me think. I'm going on my holidays. If ever there was a man that needed a holiday right now, it's this guy here. So,
Kirsty, did you not tell him?
I was going to tell him after the show.
Oh,
I didn't get any memos about it.
Your holiday's been cancelled, Mike. Some stuff came in next week.
Busy. Can't go anywhere.
I'll have a word with Mrs. Ames later, or your mother, as she's often called around here.
Pete did it. It's Pete's idea.
Let's get on with the show.
Right, yes. So today we are going to be talking about content and specifically making sure that it's the right kind of content because, we talk about content all the time, and anybody who watches the LinkedIn Live, Mike, I know that you talk about it all the time. Pete, you talk about it all the time. We talk about adding value to your network, making sure you're, showing off your credibility and your capability. But Ped, when we talk about content, what's the number one question you get asked? Because I'm willing to bet it's the same as me and it is the same as Mike as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always what should I write about?
Always. And that is going to be the focus of today's show. We are going to help you guys come up with the right topics for content. But before we go into that, we are going to look at a specific type of content today because there are, two types. And Mike, I know that you were going to sort of go into this a little bit now. What two types of content are there?
Yes, I am. Well, there's thin content. And thin content really is what a lot of people think is content really. It's things like LinkedIn posts or blogs or vlogs or LinkedIn articles. It's just the stuff that you write and put out there, or anything like that really, or videos even, just put a video out. It's content. It's thin content because it's fairly quick to create, and it can have quite a big effect, but it's not massively valuable really in the great scheme of things. It has its place. We have the second kind, which is chunky content, which we're going to talk about today, which has a lot of the benefits that you associate with content. These are things like white papers, as it says there, when you put down a whole bunch of stuff that you think. How-to guides are very popular. Some of our best chunky content is how-to guides. Micro courses, which are so easy to produce now and very underused as content. If you've been on Kirsty's course and you can produce a video, you can produce a micro course. It's so simple. Research papers, massively popular. If you do original research, and hopefully we'll get to talk about this a little later when Pete does his thing, research papers are awesome because it's original research and it is so easy. And then things like thought leadership, where you're basically changing the way in which people think. Now, I write a lot of that stuff myself. And in terms of the uses of chunky content, man, it makes you stand out, which I think is a really big thing. You stand out as somebody who's got a voice to add value. You are adding value, which is in itself, brownie point city. I like to use content, and I use it a lot for this reason, to spark interactions, to get someone to talk to me or respond to me or something. It's great for that. Mind you, thin content is very good for that as well. And then the other thing is to boost awareness. That's the thing that thin content does very well, but thick content actually does it even better. So lots of really great stuff there, I think.
Yeah. I think, thick content is massively underestimated because it's evergreen. So you get to use it, thinner content you can only use for short periods of time. It gets a day, maybe a week, but fat content, chunky content, you can use for years. We've got things that we've been using for years.
And I think the great thing about chunky content as well is that it makes you more scalable, because once you got chunky content, you can give it to the newbie and all of a sudden they've got something of value to take to their network, their burgeoning network. So you take someone who's got nothing, and rather than having to acquire 15 years of insight and wisdom, they can straight away be out there knocking on doors and becoming a valuable contact for people.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, actually. One of our principles in Flair of scalability is there's 5 of them. And the second one is that you tool up to skill down. And this is a tool. So chunky content is something that you just de-skills the process once it's been built. Very cool. Very good. Well,
Perfect.
Good.
Thank you. So today, as I said, we're going to focus on sort of chunky content. But before we get into it, I am going to ask everybody out there to let me know in the comments, how much do you ever struggle with kind of sitting with a blank page in front of you, about to write content and no ideas come? You're just there kind of going, elevator music.
Words open, and that little cursor is blinking at you, taunting you.
Swearing at you. Yeah. So please, if you have, please let us know in the comments, because we want to make sure that we're not alone in that. Okay. So what we're going to do, Ped, is we're going to come to you now, and we're going to talk to you with your rather unique point of view about how you can come up with this content. So I'm just going to bring up the slide.
Well, it's unique, but it works, which is what I like about it.
That's the key thing, really. So this is one technique I've used. There are others, but this is the one that I like to start with if someone comes to me with this initial question, because the answer to what content should I create is what's interesting to your target stakeholder. Okay, not what you know that you can write that will draw them in, but what will they come for regardless. So we start that by thinking about who is our stakeholder, who do I want to write content for, whose attention do I want to grab. So that's the person in the middle here.
You mean like that would be normally like clients or something like that?
Yeah, it could be clients, could be intermediaries if you're looking to break into a certain space,
or maybe even employees, perhaps. If you
candidates. Yeah. Candidates in the case of recruiters. Yeah, whoever it is you're writing for, you put them front and center. You get a bit of paper and you put a picture of someone there, and you give a name. Choose an actual person. That works.
That is your stakeholder, right? That's your
stakeholder. It's your target stakeholder. Hence, target person.
Nice. I like it.
And then, in the same way that you have multiple stakeholders, your stakeholder has multiple stakeholders. There are people in their world who influence their life in a way that is impactful, and therefore they are curious about why they do things, how they do things, what it is they're looking to achieve. I refer to that as the wheel of stakeholders. So there are 6 of them. Yeah, this is a game show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Now, so there are 6, and they split nicely. On the right-hand side, you've got people outside their organization. And on the left, you've got people inside their organization. So I'll just give the names of these and spin through them. So first and most prominent, we have clients. So we all have clients. Almost everybody has a client.
So what we're saying is there, to be clear, these are the clients of your clients, or the clients of your stakeholder.
Clients of your stakeholder. Yeah, clients of your stakeholder. So classic example, many of our clients are recruiters, and their clients are hiring managers in big organizations.
Well, HR directors or something, yeah.
HR directors, CEOs of SME businesses, those kind
of
things.
So for us, the stakeholder of our stakeholder is a HR director.
Yes, perfect example. Thank you, Mike. We'll do that as we go through. We'll come up with these. So then you've got competition. So rivals, essentially. So looking at our example, recruiters' rivals are other recruiters in their space. Their competition, basically. And then the third one is you've got talent. So you've got the people that they want to hire into their business to help it grow, to help it progress, and help it deliver a great service.
So that's future employees, right?
Future employees, people they want to attract. And, taking the recruitment example, at the moment, that is good recruiters, good resources. Very hard to find at the moment. So what it is that appeals to them would be of real interest to our target stakeholder. And then flipping onto the other side, you've got the internal stakeholders. So at the top, you've got the boss. So everybody wants to know what makes their boss tick. What do they want from me? What can I do to get their attention? Those sorts of things. The trick with this one is don't get caught up that, I deal with MDs. They don't have bosses, but they may well do in the form of investors, or in the form of PE-backed businesses, that the PE firm is the boss, essentially. And even with big organizations, the shareholders, having worked in these, they are the boss. They answer to them, and they want to know what they're thinking, what they want, how happy they are, how happy they're not, those kinds of things. Then, on a par with them, you've got the peers. So you've got the people inside the business who are of a similar level or who do a similar job. You'll note that these, I've done them purposely, are very similar, same image as the competition, because quite often they can be same thing, just some are internal, some are external. Yeah. And then you've got the team. So they're direct staff employees. So in the case of recruiters, that would be the resources. for example. So why won't my resources pick up the phone more? Why do they keep sending emails? That would be a classic question that we would ask of our team, our stakeholders would ask of their team. So that's the circle. And what you do is now you start looking at those people. You try and fill in, who are these people for my target stakeholder? Like, if you can come up with job titles, great. If you can come up with names, even better. And once you have that, you start asking the question of what's the challenge here? Are there things they don't know why their stakeholder does this? Why do my clients keep going cheaper? Why does my boss not pay more attention to me as a HRD? Those kinds of things.
Can I bring in an example here?
Yes.
Would you mind? Just bring it back to us for a second.
I am. It's just clicking.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Here we are.
Okay, so one of our, and I think this is a piece of content you're going to mention later, actually, Pete, but I'll bring it up there because I think it'll illustrate that. We want to appeal to recruiters. Of course we do. So the stakeholders of our stakeholders are in fact HRDs, because they want to sell that, one of the stakeholder groups, right? HRDs. Yeah. So we approached a whole bunch of HRDs and asked them what they liked and what they disliked about when recruitment companies pitch to them. So what do you like? What they pitch when they pitch, and what do you dislike? And it was amazing, really, the responses that we got. Well, I thought we'd just get a few comments. Everybody I approached commented and contributed. Every single person.
They'd had those feelings bottled up a while.
I did it on the telephone, right? And I couldn't shut some of them up. Really, seriously. They just, and I hate it when they, oh my God, I hate it when. So, okay, get you onto what you like. Well, I really like it when they do this, because that matters. So I'm producing this document based on what the stakeholders and my stakeholders are interested in. And it's how to pitch to them, how to sell to them. So then we write this document, which is basically how to pitch, really, you know, and we make it available to our clients. Now, why wouldn't you, if you're a recruitment company, why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want to know what your stakeholders like when you pitch and don't pitch to them? And that's why that is an evergreen piece of content for us. It still works now, still works a treat, because it's terribly relevant. I mean, we didn't take long to do, no special skills, but it really works because it came from the stakeholders of our stakeholders. That's a good example, isn't it, Pete?
It's a perfect example, and it's actually one of the easiest ones to kind of do, because it's fairly consistent. You know, all of our target markets have their own clients. They're all in business for the most part. And I've done it with clients before who had a really unfair advantage that they had a mix of clients. Their clients were the end user, and their clients were also the producers of a piece of software that was used by the end user. So they didn't even have to go and knock on the doors of people they didn't necessarily have normal connections with. They just went to their client and said, what do you hate about them? And exactly the same happened. There was just like an unlocking of, oh, thank God someone's asked.
Finally.
Have I got time for one more little example?
What? No, you can wait a little bit. Can you just wait a second? We've got a comment from Nigel, which I thought was really good. So one of the things he struggles with is about sort of picking the right time for content. And so is that something, Pete, that what we're talking about, is that something that helps with it, because you sort of are more planning, you're more intentional with things, or?
Yeah, so what Nigel's talking about there, I think, really applies to thin content, to producing stuff that's kind of, it's a story. It's something that happened recently. What we're talking, but it's low value. When you're trying to produce high value, it is hard unless you know the question you're trying to answer. And I think that's what I'm trying to really talk about here is if you think about the people you're aiming, and then you talk to your stakeholders about them. So, you know, where's your client's attention at the moment? What do clients ever do things that don't make any sense? You'll start to uncover the questions they have about that stakeholder of theirs. And once you have a question, you're halfway there. Then it's just a question of finding the answer. And that's a very, very simple process that doesn't need to rely upon, you know, feeling it at the time.
I think that's the first question. If you want a first step, I know you're going to talk about first steps later. For me, it's figuring out who the stakeholders of your stakeholders are. Because once you've done that, everything begins to change. You can begin to get into their world. Yeah, so.
Perfect. And then finally, I want to highlight this because Sean, we were having problems getting Sean notified that we're live. So hi, Sean, welcome. Welcome that you're good. So
Very
Pete,
well.
I know that we're going to talk about clients of clients, the clients of your stakeholders, because that is obviously the most important one. But anybody in the comment section, if you want to let us know the other one that you want to get us, because we can't go into all of them. We wish we could, but we only have a certain amount of time. So we're going to spend a couple of minutes on the kind of clients of your stakeholders. So the other ones were your competition, the team that you wish to attract. Then you've got your team you currently have, your peers, and
competition, peers, clients, boss.
That's the other one. Boss.
The other one.
So anybody, please let us know in the comments about what you'd like us to go into. So Pete, let's start with sort of clients of clients.
Okay, clients of clients. So I think actually I've heard this a lot. Well, if I ask them, they say nothing. Well, this is true. If you ask someone what can I do for you? What can I write about for you? Sean, yes, perfect. Yeah. Then that's a big question. That's a cruel question almost. That's asking them to do a lot of thinking. You need to work your way up to it. You need to ask the kind of questions that I've got here, really. So what do you think where do you think your client's attention is at the moment? So if your clients, where are your clients? Where's your client's attention? Because if it's not on you, what is it on? It will be on a challenge of theirs.
Can I have an example? Please, can I have an example now?
Because yes,
you may bring your example.
Your time
in now.
is here.
It really fits what this is, right? So I did some work with a group of recruiters recently to create a piece of content. So the stakeholders of their stakeholders, obviously HRDs and recruiters, their stakeholders weirdly are candidates because they want to get the candidates in. So what we did was we went out to a whole bunch of candidates who turned down an offer, and we asked them why they'd done that. And we gathered all the data together and compiled it into a little report, which said, look, if you do these things, it's going to turn people off, candidates off. If you do these things, it turns them on, and they're more likely to accept an offer. And if there's a counter offer, this is the sort of thing that you could do, which the candidates have told us themselves, which might be able to reverse that counter offer. Now, that's a classic example because I was doing it with my clients. So I'm doing it with recruiters. Their stakeholders are employers. The employer's stakeholders, obviously, are potential candidates, potential employees. That is such a powerful piece of content. And it's obvious because where it stemmed from, picking back on what Sean said, where it stems from is that they're struggling to get people at the moment and they're having a lot of counter offers. So we produced a piece of content around that and they're using it and it's working really well at the moment, really well.
Yeah. So in that circumstance, your key stakeholder, you're looking at their talent. That's who you're looking at, weren't you?
Yeah.
You're looking at the stakeholders' talent.
Yeah, potential employees. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Potential employees. Yeah. This one is about the clients. So your clients. So they are curious, and it's about not asking direct, but asking around it so that you build a picture of what is the relationship here? Why you struggle? Everybody struggles.
Yeah. It's key problems, is it?
Frustrations.
Yeah, in the example, look, the key problem, they couldn't get staff. Their clients couldn't get staff, and so we dug in deeper, and that's exactly what we got. Bang on example, great idea.
Yes, yeah. So starting with that, and then going maybe a little bit more direct, and just saying, do they ever do something that doesn't make sense? People like to let off steam, let's put it that way, and in the process of doing, they reveal their frustrations, and those frustrations are almost always underlined by, I don't know why they do it that way, or how can I get them to stop. So if you can get people talking about the frustrations they have with any stakeholder group, not just clients, you are gathering something that needs to be answered.
Yeah. So, and that comes from, other things that we talk about a lot, which are those relationship building calls where you're not just calling up for work, you're having a coffee, you're having a chat, you're finding out those kind of things, and people will let those sort of frustrations and problems. Yeah. But I think frustrations are sort of sometimes easier because they're smaller. Right, so frustrations are smaller than problems because problems normally need big fixes. Frustrations are smaller.
Most people's problem with the client is I can't sell enough to them. Well, I'm pretty sure there's a big industry and that's your job. Me turning up with a bit of research that says, "Have you thought about this?" Not going to go down well. Frustrations are things that are painful but don't justify their time and attention to fix. So if you rock up and do it for them, you're a hero.
Yeah.
On the same lines, if you can figure out what people want to achieve. So frustration are things they want to get rid of, sweep that away. Opportunities to be able to capitalize on. or aspirations they want to achieve, either personally or their business.
Yeah, so that one would be directed at the boss, so your stakeholder's boss.
Sure.
What do I have to do to get their attention? What do I have to do to be valued by them?
Sure.
Why do they keep promoting people like that and not people like me? Well, it's because they appreciate something. Those kinds of things you can start talking about once you understand your stakeholders' world.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I think, do we have time for one more, Pete?
I think we probably do.
Which
yes.
Which one's your probably favourite other than clients of clients? Which one do you want to go for?
I think one of my favourite ones is actually probably peers.
Okay.
Peers. I
Interesting.
Think for a
interesting thought.
Yeah, for a special set of group. Many of us work in jobs, and we assume, or we feel like, because we deal with lots of people in a space, we assume that they all talk to each other. And actually, the opposite is true. Something I've heard consistently from leaders is they wish they could spend more time with their peers. And when you ask them why, it's because I want to talk about the problems. I want to know what everyone else is up to. And our peers, what they're up to, how they're facing a particular challenge, how they're doing with this change that's coming down the road from legislation or whatever it may be. That's really what we want to know, because we like to feel safe in groups. We like to feel that we're doing something that everyone else is doing, or actually who's making it work and how can I copy them rather than come up with it myself. And peers, for that reason, are a really, really valuable source of information. It's why, if you look at the likes of Deloitte and KPMG and those people, they produce a lot of their reports on industry perspective. What do CEOs and MDs think, and then they use that information to go to CEOs and MDs. It's exactly the reason that it works. And this example here is agile. Embracing agile is hard. That article, if you actually click through and look at it, it is all about what people who have successfully embraced agile did.
So when you talk about peers, then if I'm a recruiter, say, and I go into HRD, what I'm really looking to try and get is the opinions or thoughts, or tap into, in some bizarre way, the experience and knowledge of other HRDs.
Yes,
that's what we're saying there. So I can bring that in. So if we were doing it, we might hold a round table, which is great source of content for owners of recruitment companies. They all come, and we have a subject that we discuss, and then we produce a report at the end of it. That's a peer-driven piece of chunky content, isn't it?
Perfect. Yes, perfect example. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, right. I'm just checking on the time, boys. You know how this is. I'm in charge. It's all about me. So, essentially, Pete, what we've spoken about today is, when it comes to content, there's two types. You've got thin content, which is sort of coming up with regular credibility or capability stuff, that you're posting regularly on social media. But then you've got this really powerful, chunky content, which not only gives excuses to talk to people, it also allows your team, those who are more junior, less experienced to you, to do the same as you. And it's something that you can use over and over again for extended periods of time. And that's what we've really spoken about today, because you've got those 6 main stakeholders of your stakeholder. And if you can think about things that are of interest to them, they will be of interest to your stakeholder. Is that essentially what we've sort of said today? Essentially,
yes. And I know it sounds like a lot as well. I do know that, but it's worth noting that you may create thin content on a daily basis. You'd create chunky content like this on a quarterly or semi-annual basis, maybe every 3 months, every 6 months.
Even less than that.
Yeah. If you get something really good, it will last you years, and you do only need 5 or 6.
Yeah, because that pitching one's lasted us, what, 3 years, 4 years?
I still use it now. 4 years. 2018, I did it. Yes.
Yeah, so nearly 4 years now. So it definitely makes a difference. Okay, Ped. So what we've got is we've got somebody watching this who's thinking, right, okay, I understand thin content, I've got that, but this chunky content, it does, like you say, it can seem a bit overwhelming. It can seem like quite a big thing to do. So first step, somebody's watching this, they want to create a piece of chunky content that's going to add value to their network. What's the first step that they should do?
All right. Step 1, figure out the stakeholders of your stakeholders. Mike said it earlier. Get them down on paper so you can look at them. Doing that will make it much easier to start thinking about what you already know from your many conversations with your clients about what they think about each of those relationships. Things will start to come back to you, right? So that's number 1.
And just about that as well, where those guys go, what they're interested in, what they mix, what groups they're part of, as much as you can gather about those guys, isn't it? That's what you really want.
Yeah, the more you flesh it out, the easier it will be for you to start thinking about what will genuinely interest your stakeholder about their stakeholder. Number two, then once you've got that, number two is going to be go to your stakeholders and say, if I did something on this, would you find it useful? Right?
Yeah.
Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to have a great idea, invest lots of time and effort to discover that it doesn't quite land right.
So just going back to the example I used. So if I was a recruiter and I went out to some HRDs and said, look, if I did some research around why candidates are turning down roles and taking counteroffers, would you be interested in that?
Yes. Perfect. Yeah. And the answer will be yes, bite your hand off.
Yeah.
Nah. Or somewhere in between. And you can judge then, well, what would be more interesting? And people will start to talk to you then, which answers Sean's earlier challenge of people won't talk to you, but they will pick apart an idea and replace it with one that's better in their mind. Makes it so much easier to do. And then if I may, I could leave my third tip.
Yeah.
Which is not really a tip, actually. The third one is tap into the expertise of others, right? Because what I see happen is people start coming across a topic of interest to their stakeholders and they go, but I don't know anything about it. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. It's actually easier to start out by finding a question that's really interesting to your stakeholders. And if it's really interesting to your stakeholders, there's somebody out there who's making a living answering that question.
Right? But you know, couple of things on this. I mean, I'm a big fan of this. That's what this show is based on. You know,
thanks, Mike. I'm an expert. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Twice a month, it's me and Kirsty driveling on about something, and twice a month we get someone in to speak who knows what they're talking about, and that's drawing on expertise that we can get access to, whether it's building virtual teams or storytelling, which we've got lined up for September. Yeah,
spoilers.
Right. It doesn't matter. We got some guy who lives in Malaysia. He looks fabulous. Right. Anyway, but the point is that I don't know anything about that. The other thing I've got to tell you, the biggest attendance that we had when we were doing webinars in the early days, we've since eclipsed it many times over. But in the early days, when GDPR came out, I knew nothing about it. Everybody's talking about it. I approached that guy, you know, the GDP expert. I think he'd read the manual. Actually, I don't know.
The page ahead.
He came on the show, and we were inundated with questions and people and everything. It was just mad, really. I didn't know anything about it, but I was told the questions to ask. I asked them. He answered them. Bang, great content. So this is a really, really key point here. Yeah. Figure out who has got this expertise that, you know, your stakeholders will want. Doesn't have to be you. Doesn't matter. Your job is to give it to them, isn't it? That's right.
Yes, exactly. You find it, and this is the bizarre thing. You are a hero for doing it. You're an absolute hero in their eyes because you've taken the time, you've shown you understood their real world, and you're going to find this awesome person. And the one key is you must make sure that expert does not turn it into just a very elaborate pitch.
Oh, yeah.
They're allowed to say a little bit at the end, you know, of the document or the how-to or whatever it is you've put together. But for the most part, they've got to give value, they've got to give advice, they've got to give takeaway tips.
Perfect. Yeah. So essentially, don't be afraid if the thing that's of interest to your stakeholders, you know nothing about. In fact, that's a great thing because it means you can be even more valuable. I know nothing about this, but I found someone who does.
Yes.
Perfect.
The cynics in the world, if you write about something you kind of know, the cynics in the world will assume that it's a pitch waiting to happen. And they won't come, or they'll be constantly hesitating. If you walk in about something that's nothing to do with you and just go, I found this great guy, I think you should see him. They'll love it.
It's a very good point, actually. It's an excellent point, actually. Okay, thank you so much today, Peter. You've been an absolute story. You've been fantastic. You've been amazeballs. You've been incredible. You've been... I don't do a chef's kiss for just anybody. That was excellent.
Your birthday coming up soon, Kirsty.
It's quite soon, actually. If my brother loved me.
I forgot about that.
Hurtful. Right. So thank you very much, Pete. So, and obviously Mike, thank you very much for coming in for your one more day get
I'm
up.
Going to change my name to be Afterthought Mike in a minute.
Well, just before you go, so next week, what are we going to be talking about, Mike?
We're going to be talking about a piece of research, chunky content that we produced, which is going to be published next week, on a lot of research done to do this. 3 strategies to attract and convert more candidates.
So that's going to be next week. And as per usual, thank you very much for everybody for watching, and we will see you next week.
Goodbye.